At 13 minutes past 9 o'clock there, live pictures coming in from Homer Bay at the Homer Bay High School, where the Devolution 2025 conference is taking place this morning, soon to be opened by His Excellency the President, getting into those deliberations and discussions for today. There are many panels from what we were told. Daniel Karaoke was with us a few minutes before, telling us about what the plan is over the next couple of days and the panel discussions that will be had towards a better state of devolution and actually achieving what it was required. We're continuing with those conversations here, and we're going to look at it from a youth perspective in terms of what devolution will mean for young people in the country moving forward in the next couple of years. And even as we get into that conversation too, folks will join us to let you know who those are in just a minute. All right, like I said before, we're looking into live pictures coming out of Homer Bay this morning and looking towards the Devolution Conference that's going to be taking place from today, having to be opened by the President, William Ruto. And as he does that today, there will be discussions about what has been achieved in 12 years of devolution. And there'll also, of course, be hopes for the future. And it's about one of those future hopes that we're talking about this morning at this time. And joining us to have that conversation around the youth and the future when it comes to devolution at 12 is Wendy Ora. She is a youth leader and governance enthusiast, and she joins us in the hot seat of the Situation Room this morning. Good morning, Wendy.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Karibu sana to the hot seat.
Asante.
You're going to be joined shortly by Kelvin Daniel, who is an entrepreneur with Bahati constituency and also looking into some of these issues this morning. So we'll get into that conversation. We want to welcome you in true Situation Room style with our proverb. We go to a different African country every week. This week we're in Botswana. I want to share the proverb with you, and I would like to hear your interpretation of the same, Wendy. A tree is straightened while it is still young. A tree is straightened while it is still young. How would you interpret that?
Yeah, it reminds me of the Kiswahili methali. Wanasema nini mkunje I'll remember it. But there's one methali that is related to that. So I think it's about taking advantage, leveraging on the age, that age time when a young person, that's when you are able to, that is the prime age to actually shape how your life should be, how your life, what direction your life is going to take. And speaking about the future, how your life at that time, and if we are talking about parenting, that is the time when they say parenting can actually start at a youthful age. When talk about your spiritual life, economic prosperity, youth bracket is the prime time for that. So I think it's about just taking the chances at a good time before it's too late in life.
Indeed. All right. As we delve into this conversation, of course, that the way in which a nation will be governed was dictated then by the decisions that were made. And one of those decisions was devolution. We have this conversation often, but then now, because the conference is being put out there, it spotlights, and it's at a time for an audit to really be done beyond what the plans are for the future in terms of devolution. An audit to really be done in terms of what has happened over time and what will be taken into consideration moving forward. Now, when we look at the county governments, our minds go initially to administration, and we think payroll, and we think, other administrative things that need to be done, without realizing that, like we had a conversation in the last hour, that the idea was to deal with social justice, was to deal with development, and was to deal with unity. And that is why those units, counties, then were arrived at. What it actually does in terms of governance and development is a totally different kettle of fish. When we look at, again, by the time devolution was being introduced in Kenya, the youth bulge was not what it is today. Africa was not 75% youth. Kenya was not 69, 71% youth. It wasn't.
Yeah.
But now we see, and we're starting to ask questions, that the thing that was to unite the country, the thing that was to develop the country, the thing that was to ensure that social justice, one for all, became a reality. Is it taking into consideration the majority of the population in that demographic? Is it? And if it isn't, what should be done for that to happen, from your perspective?
Yeah, that's a good stock taking of the past. And I think where we are right now, I'll give an example of a space where I was last year. And that was before the Gen Z ambush. So...
did you say the Gen Z ambush?
The unexpected storming of the parliament,
okay.
the historic June 25th. So before that, I think I was in a space where I was dealing with so many, let me say, older people. I think I was the only youth figure there, but though my role was administrative, and I used to listen to the discussions. Anytime a youth element came up, there was some restraints that were being made. And I realized that not all spaces are youth-friendly. As much as we speak about this youth inclusion, it's on the book. But in reality, where people are actually discussing and making decisions, there was no consideration. And the few times that it was brought up, it wasn't considered. Until now, when people really woke themselves from the slumber that these people they actually have a voice. And for me, I feel like as much as it had its own harms, like the death, the lives that were lost and all that, I feel like it was a wake-up call to many spaces. And they started going back they actually had to go back and include intentional youth inclusion in such conversations. And for me, that is a plus, because it has to take something, let's say, out of the norm for them to actually realize that we need these young people. And you can see the way the government is even reacting about the youth issues right now is a bit different from the way it did maybe in the last maybe 5 years ago or something. And they're actually realizing that if we don't start talking about youth, their issues, then they'll come for us. And it's a good thing. It's one of the lemonades that we made out of all that. I feel, though there's much that needs to be done. We are talking about devolution right now at 12. 12?
Yes.
Yeah, we're talking about devolution right now. And the good thing about the devolution conference is now we are having this conversation. And I think one of the outputs I'm seeing in the Homa Bay conference, they're talking about launching a youth engagement strategy.
Okay.
Yeah, and my question is, even after launching this, what happens to its implementation so that we actualize what is discussed, so it is beyond just the papers? And that is the harm we are having. It's not that people don't know that youth exist. They know. They also know their issues. But do they really consider it as a serious thing that needs to be handled? So I think it's a wake-up call for all stakeholders and everyone, including the youths ourselves, to claim our spaces rightfully.
Is there an opportunity to claim those spaces right now? And if we talk about the launch, what did you call it? A launch of a youth strategy?
Yeah, there's a youth engagement strategy.
Youth engagement strategy. It doesn't sound like it's anything new.
Yeah.
So is it something to be excited about?
Not really. We have the county youth policies, and I think most counties, if not all, have that policy. We may not be aware of it, but I think even the provisions that are in there are comprehensive. What we need to do is have the goodwill of actualizing what we want in what we have in those documents. If starting all documentation, looking at, if you stream down up from the Constitution 2010, it has provisions of youth engagement. The Article 55. It talks about youth representation in all spheres, in the economic, social, political. So it's not a new thing that the youth need to be included now. It has been there in the documents. What needs to be done is now, what have we done? And then who is responsible? Who needs to answer that this has not happened?
My question with regards to what you've just said, it seems to me the conversation around youth and youth empowerment only comes in as a project discussion. where let's have our youth do this, let's allocate these funds for our youth to enable them do that. And I don't, from what you said earlier, you were in a conversation with the old people.
Yeah.
You're the only young person in that conversation. And drawing from that example, does it, in your opinion, as a young person looking at all this, because like Ndu said, it's not the first time we're having this. It's not the first time we're having this discussion. Is it always a conversation about let's bring you on board, we create a project around what your interests are, and then you go run with it? When will it ever feel that you are part of a conversation? Let's sit same level on this table, and let's have around this table and have a discussion around the agenda of this country. It's true. It is beyond just representation, beyond just sitting on the table. What I realized that as much as we may be invited on those tables, is your voice meaningful? Is it making any impact to that discussion? Because you may be invited, maybe for ticking the boxes, maybe for something else, maybe because the funds were allocated for youth inclusion. But at the end of the day, was your voice adding value and actually making impact to that? And you see, the issue we have in this country is that, let's start with the political sphere. If you look at the political spheres, we've had situations where the young people get elected or nominated, and then where do they go to? Their voice looks like their voices get diminished. They get shut down. But of course, we're still advocating for representation so that we reach at that level. But the question is, even after coming to that table, are you really making impact on that? And you've talked about the co-creation aspect, which is very important, so that it's not an issue of make it for us and bring it to us. You don't serve us, but how do we co-create as equal partners in any discussion? And if the government claims to have established the Youth Council, one of the things I wanted to maybe call out was the previous and recent issues we've had about the uproar by the young people. One of the things I really expected with the Youth Council to be very vocal about that, because that is the body that is established and institutionalized by the government to represent the voices of the young people. For me, I felt they were quiet, and we kept asking ourselves, are they quiet because they are part of that government? So to what point do we say they're now standing strong on the young people as the trusted voice of the young people? And I know right now they've talked about approving of the budget for elections. After that election, how powerful is that Youth Council? Those are the questions we're asking. It's not about creating such frameworks and then stopping at that. But what power are you giving them?
Who are you asking?
I'm asking the Youth Council.
Who sits on the Youth Council?
I know they have a secretariat. I know, they have a secretariat. They're currently talking about re-election right now. There's a Youth Council, there's a youth policy, a national youth policy. But I'm now pointing it out as one of the things I felt as a young person that needs to be done better. If you're talking about the young people, and that is a body that is gazetted, to speak for the young people.
Okay, I was going to ask you what the Youth Council then does. It's supposed to speak for young people?
It should.
And then what beyond that? Beyond speaking, what happens?
Beyond just speaking, they need to follow up. And because they're in the government, working with the government, beyond just what I know they've done well, I think is the part of opportunities.
In what way?
Access to opportunities, sharing information about the opportunities, giving access and all that. But my point was when young people needed them. You remember there's a time the president was talking about, let's talk with the young people, you come. And then the Gen Zs were saying we are trouble. We don't want to come on the table. What's the role of the Youth Council if it is the voice of the young people? It was mandated, it was supposed to actually bring now the voices together and be the linkage between these two.
Who sits
partners.
on the Youth Council?
There's a board, but also the secretariat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who appoints?
I don't know the current. It's been years, over 10 years since they did the elections.
Okay.
Yeah, they're actually planning to do elections maybe soon.
And they should do elections however so often.
As per the policy, I don't know how it should be, but I know it's long overdue.
It's long overdue.
Right, overdue.
Okay.
But I know right now they've approved the budget.
All right.
For elections.
So here we are with a council that is meant to oversee issues of youth in the country and its involvement in governance.
Yeah.
It's supposed to then essentially be responsible for training young people in matters government and governance. That hasn't done elections in over a decade. That is not doing anything much more than speaking about particular issues and is failing to implement certain directives that would essentially assist young people in moving. And that is what we're putting together into a recipe. And for some reason, we are surprised that there is no youth involvement, there's no youth training, there's really not an idea of what people are supposed to do when and if they get into government. But we're also then putting the responsibility on this 71% of the population kind of thing and say that you're going to be the leaders of tomorrow. How do you think that's going to work?
Let me tell you, if it's beyond just setting it up, the youth council, if you are intentional about the youth agenda, they say finance follow the functions. You fund the functions of that youth council. Give them the power to speak without fear of contradiction or anything. Let them speak genuinely for the young people. And after doing that, fund well so that the activities can write. Because one thing I know is also they need finances to actualize the mandate that they have.
What kind of activities would make sense for a youth council? Remember that we're having this conversation against the backdrop of devolution and what this is actually meant to do for the country. One of those being development and development in initiatives that will essentially lead towards good governance. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So what kind of activities would a youth council then be involved in that would bear fruit when it comes to governance and leadership into the future for Kenya?
If you're talking about devolution, take the devolution model, where now we are having the national mouthpiece. And then how can you bring this down to the local levels? Because right now we have the counties and we have the wards. If we are going to have, let's say, the ward reps, the county reps, there's a certain structure that they're talking about. How are we going, beyond just the titles that we're going to give them? What powers are we also giving them so that they're able to collect the most local views of the young people, and then have a way of bringing it to the top, to the national, so that it is one voice. So the gap may be at that connect to the grassroots level, so that everyone feels part and parcel of that one voice that you're talking about. Yeah.
So you are a youth leader. In your space, and I just want to bring this conversation into the thinking then of a young person and the inclusion concerning how their future should look like. Now, the president yesterday talked about, he was, in quoting the youth, he made some very bold promises, and I'll just list couple of things here. President Ruto said the National Youth Opportunities Towards Advancement, which is called the Nyota program, I don't know if you've heard of it, was a cornerstone of the government's efforts to empower over 100,000 youth nationwide through business support and skills training. Now, phase one is set to benefit 90,000 youth aged between 19 and 29. So the age is very clear there. Then they will receive training in areas aligned with current and emerging job markets. Then went on and further talked about a social enterprise initiative. This is, I don't know whether it's the same thing or something different, that will then in September identify 70 young people from every ward. And these individuals will undergo training and receive seed capital of 50,000 Kenya shillings in form of grants. Now, with all these plans, and there are many similar to what I've just mentioned, as a youth leader, are you then engaged, involved actively in formulating and coming up with some of these decisions? And two, is this what you as a young person is looking for?
First, let me say that it's not a loss in itself. I've seen the Nyota program. It's not a loss in itself. But the target, I feel it's targeting the mostly TVET or those who may have not completed high school, or those who dropped out, or those who are in college. Let me say that. But do you know there's also a certain quarter of youth who went to university? And in Kenya, every year we have over 500,000 graduates, And this is what we are talking about, that as much as we're talking about this unemployment, and we're looking at why do we have this bulge in unemployment, before I go to that other bulge, that other quarter, let's talk about those who graduate from university. They have certain trained skills from university. And the other day, through CMD, we were analyzing the policy gaps in unemployment. We realized that after coming out, the anger that they have is that you want to give them, maybe let's say a wheelbarrow, for example, to go do odd job. This is somebody who invested in education, did a degree, This is somebody who learned about marketing or something else. I know we are doing the other jobs. Entrepreneurship is not about, I'm not brushing it off, but how about the skills that you gained that you're supposed to actually use in a different sector? Because not everyone will do the small jobs. And this is not to demean those people, okay? I'm just saying that there's what I feel that lacks with this particular quarter is the skills mismatch. In terms of how are we preparing them post-graduation so that they're able to earn better? Because what I know right now, even with the current economic environment, entrepreneurship is so hard right now. I won't lie. It's not everybody's cup of tea, But what environment are you creating for people so that these skills that they've learned over 4 years or more than 4 years, they're able to learn it in practice in a certain workplace setup? And one of the things we were looking at in our policy brief was, can the government actually make it a policy so that we have institutions have, even if it is mandatory or something, have a framework where they support these young people to come learn on the job? Because we've focused so much on the other quarter, which is the technical skilling, which is not bad, But not everyone does entrepreneurship. And we also have currently majority across all sectors having the digital skills, which is a big investment that we need to tap on. But is the workplace ready for that? Is the workplace having the frameworks, what is needed so that these digital skills that the young people have is harnessed and they're able to be compensated? Right now, what a young person is looking for is a job that can pay your rent, you can eat comfortably while going to the job every day. That's the bare minimum. But we have certain internships that don't even pay. After internship, what next? And even some places, they don't have internship opportunities,
So if we're saying that this is the burden that is on the shoulders of many a youth today, and there's also the burden for future leadership, there's that, everybody keeps talking about, drain the swamp. But when we see, 15 to 20 governors and their deputies who are from, a younger demographic, when will this actually happen? But here, on the other hand, we're saying that the problem of young people today is people are not interested in being leaders. People are worried about how they're going to pay their rent and how they're going to eat.
True.
Is this the case? People are not interested in leadership? Young people are not interested in leadership? Not interested in governance at that level? They're interested in what the governance will actually do to affect their situation. Is that what we're saying?
They are interested, and that's why they're vying. They're vying, only that they may not vie for governor, the bigger roles, senator. They may have few at the top because of the money implication of that. So most of them end up vying at the MCS, but you have many young people who are actually vying, So it does not mean they don't want the leadership. They want that. But after the election period, when you lose and go home, how are you going to eat? The MCA, the MCA title will come with a salary, of course. But beyond just losing, so between the 5 years, how is your life going to be? Nobody will care that you vied. You can sleep hungry in this country, When you go somewhere, and that is the burden that we've created as Kenyans, that when you see someone doing a flyer and saying, I'm going to be an aspirant, then already you feel that person owes you money. So you go somewhere and they start asking for handout, because that is the culture we've created. But this is a young person who is worried about how he's going to survive and looking at the basic needs. So I think it's not really that the young people don't want to vie. They actually turn out in numbers, but the economic well-being is a priority, because the vying season is for a few months, and then you're back to the reality that you're a young person in Kenya. Yeah.
So, looking at devolution, 12 years, do you feel, because you have a lot of young people across different counties in this country, do you feel there is a space that has been created out of this devolution conversation to at least influence decision making, or be part of not just the politics, or is youth engagement only coming in when it's a token? Let me give you this money, go do your business. Let me give you a wheelbarrow. Let me give you what is it called, a boda. Let me give you this, go do your business, basing it on what you said earlier, that it's not everybody necessarily who wants to get into business or entrepreneurship in that direction. The people who've got other, like digital skills, for example. Do you feel there is that inclusion 12 years later?
When it comes to the inclusion, there's a thin line between now the national. The youth factor is more of now a national issue. So when devolution comes, I look at it in terms of the spaces it has created politically, in terms of the MCA, the county governance. We have the MCAs, we have the CECs. So this is also dependent on the political landscape of that county, because each county, I think they're different. We can't judge them the same. We have counties where they have at least created spaces in the CCs. You can see the young people, but you have others who still appoint the people they know, the people in their circles. Some as like favor from supporting campaigns, and those will now be the bigwigs, But when it comes to opportunities, creating opportunities, also that is not really. You can't judge generally as 47 counties. It will also depend on which county you're talking about. What's the level of corruption in that county? We have those who are doing fairly well. Those, if you find a governor intentionally creating spaces for training, for access of opportunities and all that. If you have a governor who is intentional about bringing investors to your county, that is a plus for the youth. Okay. If you have a governor who is, let's say the counties that have the affordable housing, the young people can access that, But now you cannot say that the youth factor now is being devolved in entirety, because now it's a national issue. What affects young person at the county level affects also at the national level. So I think it's still streamed to the governance of the country as a whole, and even coming then you trickle down to the counties. How effective is your governor? Because now they are the president of that county. What is their goodwill? What's the level of their goodwill to the young people? Yeah. So I think it varies, but maybe for me speaking, because I'm from Homa Bay County, there's many opportunities I've seen of late. I think this year, Homa Bay County, I feel is one of the counties that is benefiting well from the current government. And with such opportunities, those who now do the work on the ground, most of them are young people. So that is what you are talking about. You create opportunities for them so that they're able to come in with their skills and expertise.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's look at what happens in terms of opportunity that then present themselves. The Youth League in South Africa is a league that has borne some of the greats, right? And in terms of what they've been able to do, we see them on a grand scale because then they have an opportunity. They're behind the mic, they're doing the campaigns, they're doing all of these things. Julius Malema being one of the folks who rose up through the ranks because there were people who were fostering him.
Yeah.
They were fostering many other people. So some of the activities that I asked about, what you do, young people make their way into parliament. They sit and they see how government businesses run. They have an experience when it comes to this is what I would do, having been given the opportunity. Do we get it wrong? And I'm focusing on leadership specifically. That are we ready to get our hands dirty? Are we really ready to get into the water, get wet, and experience this whole thing head on? Or are we saying, give me the responsibility, give me the opportunity without an experience in how this is actually supposed to happen? I understand that there's the aspect of learning on the job and let's wing it and go with it and we'll learn as we go. But this is government. This is the lives of millions of people that will be affected by your signature. This is the lives of millions of people who will be affected by the debates that you hold in parliament. These are the lives of the people who will be affected whether they go to school or not by the debates that you have one to another, by the policies that you enact, by the budgets that you keep, by the lawmaking that you put in place, by the oversight that will happen. Can this really be done on the back of no experience?
Let me tell you, once there are certain positions, now before I get to the point that was in my head, but there are certain positions that actually, let's say if you talk about, we have certain junior roles, we have different levels of the cadres of jobs, but you find that some that they need, let's say, an assistant, and then you look at the experience of that assistant, you're like, where does this assistant get all this experience you're talking about? I don't know if it is an HR issue or something, because you look at some job JDs and you're like, this person is asking for, let's say, let me give a typical example. When they were announcing the IBC post for vacancy for commissioners, they were talking about, was it over 10 years experience? And then which I know we have youths with over that experience. But the question that came out at that time was, once you start knocking out the young people, it was I think 15. Once you start knocking them out because of the experience, then you are limited the opportunity to come speak for themselves, because that already is a shortlisting minimum, but it varies with the job, and I don't know if that's an HR issue, if it is corporate, but what I wanted to say when talking about the political part of it, if the young people being able to come and occupy those spaces, Kenya, before any government is in place, there's a election bit. You go back a bit before the election, before how that government comes into power. There's a part where the political parties. And Kenya, if you look at the history and the reality, political parties thrive. It's so hard to thrive independently. And the main political parties that we know of, these are systems that are created by certain people. And they are more of even individual vehicles or something. Because we have those who has the say in those political parties. And if these particular people don't have your goodwill, you'll be there to tick the box of youth league, because you are there, because you're a young person and they need to have that. It is a requirement by the law. But now when it comes to where decisions are made and we now want people on those positions, the young people still struggle.
But there's also a counter-argument. The young people want these positions. They want to occupy political spaces, all areas of governance. There is also an argument that there is also a risk of pushing that conversation of youth representation in those spaces without first addressing the question of not just political mentorship, like the classic example that Undu mentioned through the ANC. That is political mentorship. So you have a lot of people who have gone through political structures whereby then they rise to the very top. So that is one part. So there is the question of mentorship, and there is the question of then capacity building. Is that a genuine concern that, fine, you want to occupy these spaces, but because you lack capacity and you lack this mentorship, there are certain areas that will be very risky then to expose to
you?
Yes.
Let me tell you, I think my experience, I may not have so many years of experience, but my experience is that this thing called mentorship is different to the ground. Kwa ground, unasema vitu ni different.
How is it different?
Mentorship. To find someone who is very intentional about you growing up as a young person and giving you that space to gain that experience, real experience, it is different. There's a lot of, how do I call it? There's a lot of, what is the term? Like building a certain wall around certain spaces.
Like there are barriers.
Gatekeeping. Do I call it gatekeeping? Yeah. And for me, speaking as let me be tribal a bit. To be a Luo today, and for a Luo, a youth who is a Luo in this country, to actually get the spaces. And we have so many who are very vocal from the university and post-university, who are very vocal, who are doing so much, speaking for the young people. But when you're getting positions now, when these positions come up, you find you are not there. And maybe
which positions are you referring to? Political positions?
Political positions. Okay. It can be in this task force. We have so many positions that normally come even after elections, But sometimes for me, if I go tribal, the Luo youth for a long time, they're being left out.
They are being left out, or they were being left out?
Are being left out. And we have spaces that have been created. And sometimes tribal cards come in, you feel you are out of place because the region you are coming from. And you have the same capacity, the same vigor as the other person who has been nominated. But because you have a lot of gatekeeping within your region and a lot of keeping among your people, you find it so hard to find someone who's very intentional about holding your hands.
Sorry, I'm trying to understand where you're going with this. So you being a young Luo woman, as you've just rightly put, getting mentorship or getting into these spaces becomes difficult because of you being Luo. So who's doing this gatekeeping? Who's preventing you from getting that access?
There's no specific name that I give, but every political sphere, let me say, any collective movement that is politically enshrined, it has certain people that are key decision makers. We have different agendas and all. I'm saying this because we've had these towards election, these lobby groups that normally come up during, and these are young people who are trying hard to do for their parties or do something good for themselves, But what comes when now they're making decisions about who gets what, So really, because there's a lot of interest. Let me say there's a lot of interest to the people you think can mentor you. They also have their interest. And politics is a game of fists. Yeah, the strong when the most powerful ones get standing. And then if you're knocked out of the game, you're out. So if you don't have that person who has the fist to fight for you as a young person, then you are knocked out automatically.
We could go for days with this one that you've brought up, because that looks like it, I mean, from your perspective, looks like it is quite something. Let's take a dash quickly to Homa Bay and see what's going on. It's cutting to a few minutes to 10 o'clock. We'll take a quick look into Homa Bay, where we're going to be joined by KTN reporter Daniel Karaoke and KTN news anchor Jesse Rogers. Let's hear a point from what is going on at this point now as we get into things. Jesse, Daniel, good morning.
Right, good morning. Thank you very much. And you have said it right. You are still here in Homa Bay County. This is where the Devolution Conference, the 9th edition of the Devolution Conference, is taking place. And right now, as we speak, what is going on is a panel discussion on good governance. On the panel list is Governor Ochilo Ayako of Migori County, just the neighboring county of Homa Bay here, and also the Principal Secretary, Social Protection and Senior Citizens Affairs, that's Joseph Mogosi, and Catherine Muma, who is a nominated senator, who is actually talking right now as we speak. And also we have the Law Society of Kenya representative Brian Odongo, and then the ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission chairperson, that's Dr. David Oginde, who is also a bishop at the EACC chair. They're having that discussion, and the discussion is majorly on good governance. That's the theme of the day for this first day, with expectations that President William Ruto will officially open this conference later on, according to the schedule, the program rather. He is expected to officially open this conference from around 11 a.m. Where he is going to be making his keynote address after having a commemoration of tree growing initiative, unveiling the iconic of the person who was behind the devolution, the idea behind devolution in the country. That's what is going to be happening before the official opening later on. But of course, we are following keenly on what is happening here, and I'm joined by my colleague Jesse Rogers, who we've been with here in Homa Bay County. Jesse, I've been following keenly on what is happening around, and right now a panel discussion is ongoing, but it's the first day. Well, we had the first day yesterday with the preparation, final touches here and there. Till now, what can you talk about the Devolution Conference, the 9th edition?
I mean, it might be the first official day, but it's really clear that devolution was meant to bring services closer to the people. And this devolution conference is sort of taking stock of the steps that have been made so far, the challenges that have emerged, which are numerous. And you can just take a look at the front page of the Standard today, just to take a look at some of the challenges devolution has faced. Talk about devolved corruption, talk about functions or money not following functions. And we remember President William Ruto not too long ago gave that assurance that all the devolved functions, I think they're roughly 12 or 14, thereabout, should actually go to the counties. And some of these functions actually range from county health services, waste management. So they're quite a raft of issues. And that's why governors are actually pushing for more allocation in terms of the equitable share. In the 2025-2026 financial year, I think we saw them get roughly 415 billion, but that was below their expectations. And I think that's one of the messages that will be regurgitating right here in terms of more allocations to the counties in order to enable them actually conduct their functions. But more allocations actually comes with exactly, and transparency issues are a big thing, not just at the national level, but at the county level. Just talk to EACC, and some governors actually say it's unfair. There's so much focus on the county governments. What about the national government, And yet some of these injustices are still happening. So matters to do with transparency, accountability, increase of allocation, that might be touched on today. Matters to do with good governance, and you highlighted the other themes that will be centered around social justice, around inclusivity, equity, and those matters.
Right, you are very right, Jesse. I have seen most of the time, I think since the 2013 elections, the bicameral parliament came into place, they are always having the discussion. They are always going to mediation to talk about allocation to the counties, whereas the constitution is very clear on how the allocation should be done. And even this year, they also went for mediation between Senate and National Assembly. Could we say that maybe the Senate finds itself on the receiving end because maybe they don't have much powers to be involved in budget-making process?
I think they find themselves in between a rock and a hard place, because one of their functions as a Senate is matters to do with devolution, oversight around the 47 devolved units. So they find themselves between a rock and a hard place.
Spice up your...
If you get my drift. So that's why the deliberations are very important. But when you go to the negotiating table, it's a matter of give and take. So they can't put their foot down and say 450 billion is the minimum we want. So they'll have to give some in order to get some. And I think as long as there's political goodwill from the national level and the county level, then perhaps this will be progressive. It's not just an event, it's a process. So we definitely hope by 2027 allocations to some of these county governments is increased. Yeah.
And definitely maybe more reasons to why senators are pushing for amendment of the constitution with a new bill to be introduced in a Senate, seeking to make Senate an upper house so that at least they are involved. And part of what they are pushing is to be involved in budget making process that they have been left out most of the time. And of course, just like Jesse has said, there is a lot to be discussed. Tomorrow, Wednesday, when the former Prime Minister, Raila Odinga, is going to be making a keynote address, part of what will be discussed is human rights and also justice. And then on Thursday, or rather Friday, when the conference is going to be officially closed by Deputy President, they're going to be talking about matters to do with equity. Now, that is just part of what we expect, but we'll keep informing you just to have a feel of what is going to be taking place here at the 9th edition of the Devolution Conference. But for now, I hand it back to you in studio.
Thank you very much, Daniel Karaoke and Jesse Rogers out in Homa Bay, giving us an insight into what's going on during the Devolution Conference. Of course, more insights through the day coming in from you, and thanks for doing that this morning. Wendy Ora has been our guest this hour to be able to look through the youth perspective and what can be expected and hoped for. Wendy, thank you for doing that with us this morning. Thank you for being in the Situation Room this morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.